Irma's destruction. AP reports at least 11 are dead, though some international news agencies reports Irma has killed as many as 14. The storm hit Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas overnight. In Barbuda, the Prime Minister says it was like a bomb going off on the island. 2 hours, Irma destroyed 95% of its structures and vehicles.
Well, my main concern right now is how we're going to survive after this. Meaning that every house, every infrastructure, every utility that is there is completely damaged and gone.
In St. Martin, Irma destroyed the airport. This aerial video shows the damage on the U.S. Virgin Islands. All right, so let's get right to Danny and talk about where this thing is headed next. And this update that we got, Danny, any change to the path that's expected?
Category 4 with the change from 24 hours ago. Remember, Category 5, 157 mile per hour winds. Started seeing that west. So it really is towing the line of still being in Category 5. So don't let that fool you that the last update we have dropping down to Category 4, moving through really warm water as it tracks through the Bahamas as well. So we're not completely ruling out the potential for re-strengthening, although the National Hurricane Center does keep it a Category 4 as it approaches the Florida Peninsula. That all-important northerly shift that's expected to take place on Saturday is very, very strong. The models have not been trending in Southwest Florida's favor over the past, I would say, 16 hours or so. Yesterday at this time, that it is headed into some of the warmest waters. It's been trending west, and at this point, so potential for re-strengthening is not out of question, right up the center of the state. But you can see that cone of uncertainty approaches the Florida still includes the entire peninsula, and we could see more shifts to the west. We could see shifts further to the east. But what I want you to prepare for is right up the center hurricane-like conditions as we head into this weekend in Southwest Florida. Again, a lot of it tracking further to the east, and conditions wouldn't be as bad in Southwest Florida, but if this track verifies, a lot of us do need to be prepared for this hurricane-like conditions, especially for our inland areas. It looks like the National Hurricane Center has a Category 4 storm making landfall in Southwest Florida, or South Florida, as we head toward this weekend. Timeline still going to be Saturday night. Strong storm. It all depends on that shift north, which we still expect to happen on Saturday, and that'll give us a better idea of just how far east and just how far west. At this point, confidence is fairly high right up the center, but you can see that range here, that cone of uncertainty, if you will, still could push it further west or further east, although the track right up the center. And if it moves any further west, our impacts grow. If it moves further east, that would be better for us, although it does still look like impacts could potentially be severe through South Florida as we head into this weekend. Spaghetti plots are coming to a better agreement in terms of this right up the middle path. Remember, yesterday was focused on the east side, today focused right up the middle. Some models have it all the way over on the west side, which would, of course, be worse for us. The further west, the worse off that we're going to be. Right now, the track up the middle still puts the hurricane force wind field, which is 70 miles outside of the center, well into our, of course, right over our inland counties. So a hurricane warning has been issued for Collier, Glades, and Hendry. That means hurricane conditions are expected. They are in the forecast, and you need to be prepared for them heading into the weekend. Hurricane watch in place for Charlotte and Lee, which means hurricane conditions are possible, and any shift further west would put that hurricane force wind field all over Lee and Charlotte counties. Surge watch also for those counties. Surge warning in Collier County with potentially 5 to 10 feet. So flooding also going to be an issue, as well as the wind impacts for Collier County. And really, we're looking at wind impacts all across Southwest Florida. 40 to 70 miles per hour. The tropical storm force, a sure bet, potentially greater than 80 with the hurricane force wind field, 70 miles outside of the center. Again, it's all about that little shift. Even 20 miles east or west is going to make a big difference. So we just got to prepare, and that's the main message. Finalize those preparations today. Forecasts will cooperate. Scattered storms possible even by this afternoon with chances near 50%. But it's time to finalize those preparations. And I would encourage you to prepare for hurricane-like conditions so that you are covered no matter what happens with a shift in the track that could still come over the next day or so. I'll send it to traffic.
All right, Danny, thank you. And this is what's going on as people get prepared to leave Florida. If you're getting ready to head out the door and you're going up I-75, this is what you have ahead of you. This is I-75 northbound near Ponce de Leon, and you can see it is quite a bit of volume. In fact, we're seeing backups pretty much between here, Southwest Florida, and the state line. In some areas, it gets really bad. If you're staying in Southwest Florida, though, Fort Myers looking good right now. Not seeing much traffic out there at all, and no accidents to report. All right, in Lee County, mandatory evacuation orders are about to go into effect. The orders are if you live on Bonita Beach, Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, Captiva, or Pine Island. This mandatory evacuation order will also be in effect for all mobile homes all over Lee County, regardless where they're located.
So you might be wondering where to go. This morning, For In Your Corners, Malcolm Johnson's in South Fort Myers High School there.
Yeah, that's where some people are going to shelters. Malcolm, you've been seeing people line up
Chris,
there.
We know that the doors don't open up here until 9 a.m. for these evacuees to make their way inside of South Fort Myers High School, again on Plantation Road, just off of Daniels Parkway. But that has not stopped the evacuees from making their way here. You see all these people behind me? Well, we're going to show you even more as we slowly just pan off and let you all see how many people are starting to fill up here. This isn't people dropping their kids off to school. I know that's what it looks like. Maybe an after school or before school pickup line with parents lined up. No, these are parents, these are families, these are children, these are babies, these are pets. These are members of this community that live near Daniels, that live near Metro, that live near Plantation, who have made their way here early this morning to make sure that they can ensure themselves a spot inside of this shelter. Now, not everyone is as fortunate as the folks that you're looking at who are able to drive here this morning. We spoke with one woman who dropped some of her neighbors off.
Be up early enough to catch a bus, then to get off at Daniels, get on a second bus. They had to push the strollers because there's two of my neighbors have small kids, babies in their arms. So one's going to have a double stroller. So then they would have to have caught the bus to Daniels. Then they would have to walk from Daniels all the way down here to the school.
So let's bring it back now live here to South Fort Myers High School. What you're looking at is some of the administrators here at the school. They're not going to be responsible for taking care of this operation. It's the Red Cross that will be. Not until the Red Cross arrives will they open up these gates and these sea of cars will be able to park inside. The doors, again, don't open until 9 a.m. We're live this morning. Reporting in Fort Myers, I'm Malcolm Johnson, Fox 4 in your corner.
That is quite the picture there, Malcolm. Thank you. Okay, starting at 9 o'clock, the Lee County shelters were open. That's what Malcolm just said. And Lehigh Acres, here's where you can go. East Lee County High School, which is accepting pets, Varsity Lakes Middle, and Harns Marsh Middle. If you're in Fort Myers, you can get shelter at Oak Hammock Middle and South Fort Myers, which is accepting pets. That's where Malcolm just was. Shelters will also be open at Island Coast High in Cape Coral and the Estero Rec Center. Now, some of you may not know where these places are, or you may not know which one is closest to where you live. That's why this map is so helpful. This is a map of the shelters throughout Lee County, where they are. That red line you see down the middle of your screen, that's 75. You can see there are 3 shelters in Lehigh Acres, 1 in the Cape, 2 in Fort Myers, and 1 in Estero. In preparation for Hurricane Irma, Governor Rick Scott announced that all public schools, K through 12, state colleges, state universities, and state offices will close through Monday. Yesterday, Governor Scott urged everyone in the state to be prepared to evacuate.
And mandatory evacuations are in order for some communities in Collier County starting at 1 this afternoon. They're in effect for Goodland, Everglades City, and Chokoloskee. There's a voluntary evacuation advisory for Marco Island until further notice. But people living in mobile homes across the county, especially those east of Collier Boulevard, are strongly advised to leave the area.
Some of those folks will no doubt be going to a shelter. So let's go to For In Your Corners' Jillian Idle, who is live at one of those shelters at Palmetto Ridge High School. Jillian.
Well, Chris, Jane, this location, this Palmetto Ridge High School shelter is a special needs shelter. It's going to be the only one in Collier County that is for those with special needs. There are, though, some requirements if you plan on heading out to this one, and you'll see those here on your screen in just a little bit, and also you can get it on our mobile app and website, fox4now.com. There's a few things, though, if you are going to be evacuating and heading to a shelter sometime today. This one opens at 8 a.m., but the rest of them are going to open at 1 p.m. today in Collier County. Also, the county is waiving bus fees, so if you need transportation, you can use the county buses to get to one of these locations. We're going to have all the locations for you listed out on our website, fox4now.com, and we'll have more information for you coming up in a little bit. But for now, reporting live in Collier County, Jillian Idle, Fox 4 in your corner.
Jillian, thank you. Collier County shelters will open today. If you have pets, you can head to Immokalee Middle School and Cypress Palm Middle. The other shelters on this list do not allow for pets. They're on your screen. Immokalee High, Gulf Coast High, Oak Ridge High, make that Oak Ridge Middle, and Lely High. And voluntary evacuations are being recommended for people on the barrier islands in Charlotte County. This is not a mandatory evacuation. This includes Don Pedro Island, Knight Island, Little Gasparilla Island, and Minnesota Key. This recommendation also includes people living in mobile homes across the county.
Okay, let's take you to Hendry County. There is a shelter if you live there. It's at LaBelle Middle School. In Glades County, Maples Grove Baptist Church, West Glades Elementary, and Moorhaven High School will all act as shelters. And in DeSoto County, the shelter will be at DeSoto Middle School. We also want to tell you there is a special needs shelter opening at South Florida State College in Arcadia. Well, Governor Rick Scott announced mandatory evacuations for areas south of Lake Okeechobee from Lakeport to Canal Point. The order will be in effect today for South Bay, Lake Harbor, Pahokee, Moorhaven, Clewiston, Belle Glade, and Canal Point.
As we head into the weekend, we are looking at potential impacts from Hurricane Irma. I'll have the latest on Irma and what we should expect here in Southwest Florida coming up after the break.
Time right now is 7:14. We're tracking Irma, which is making its way through the Bahamas right now. And on that live cam there, you could see the trees blowing and the water in the distance and in the pool. It doesn't look too bad, but it's definitely picking up with Irma just over the islands. A heads up for people in Southwest Florida planning to evacuate. Tolls at Lee County's 3 bridges, the Midpoint, the Cape Coral, and Sanibel Causeway, are suspended until further notice. This comes days after Governor Scott suspended all tolls on Florida highways.
All right, we've talked a lot lately about airlines overbooking, right? Well, at least one man who was trying to evacuate Irma's path says he can't get out of Fort Myers right now because of a rental car company.
Yeah, 4 in Your Corner spoke to a man who says he made a car reservation through Enterprise to get his elderly mother out of town. But when he went to pick it up, he was told there wasn't a car available for him. He says an employee told him they accidentally overbooked more than 70 cars for people in Fort Myers. 4 in Your Corner tried reaching out to Enterprise to find out what happened, but we've yet to hear back.
7:15 your time now. Let's get right back to Danny. I know you're getting updates all the time on Hurricane Irma. Where do we stand right now?
Right now, Irma moving through the southeast Bahamas with wind speeds of 155 miles per hour. That does make it a Category 4. That was released at the 5 a.m. update. But I do want to caution you, don't let that give you false hope. This is weakening rapidly. Category 5 is 157. Again, this is 155, so we just dropped out of that classification. And it's headed through extremely warm waters in the Caribbean. So the chance and the threat of re-strengthening not completely out of the question, although the National Hurricane Center does have it as a Category 4 as it approaches the Florida Peninsula. As it stands right now, just under 400 miles away from Miami this morning. You can see the eye just north of Cuba. It is expected to take that track continuing just north of Cuba before making that all too important northerly turn, which really is the key to the forecast in terms of potential impacts. But the latest trends that we've been seeing since about yesterday afternoon are not moving in southwest Florida's favor, and that is because the track has continued to shift west. You know, see right up the center of the peninsula, which puts the hurricane force wind field, which is extending 70 miles per hour outside of the center of Irma through most of southwest Florida. So that's what my main message is today. This is the final day to prepare, and at this point I think it's smart that everyone in southwest Florida prepares for hurricane conditions, because you also see the cone of uncertainty here, which means any jog this way possible. We could see this center of the storm this far this way, this far to the east as well. And again, any 25, 30, 40 mile per hour move either direction could have a big change in our potential impact. But as it stands right now, if we're going with the current track, if this verifies, we're looking at a Category 4 storm making landfall in South Florida, moving right up the center, putting our inland counties right in the center of Irma and putting that hurricane force wind field through much of southwest Florida. Spaghetti plots here are all your different forecast models. If you remember yesterday, tightly clustered up the east coast. Today, tightly clustered right up the center. A few models still have it going up through southwest Florida. Again, we're not in the clear in terms of that path, but most of these right up the center, and that's what I want you to prepare for. The European model yesterday afternoon and again this morning with that path that would put hurricane force winds all across southwest Florida, extending right up the center of the peninsula. And the GFS model, the 6D run, just came out, and it's looking about the exact same. So it looks like models starting to come to consensus in terms of the center of the state track. A hurricane warning has been issued for Collier, Glaze, and Hendry. So our 3 inland counties. A hurricane warning means hurricane conditions are expected. They are in the forecast. Prepare for them. A hurricane watch is what is in place right now for Lee and Charlotte, but I want to caution you, any jog further west, I'm talking 20 miles, and it's a sure thing that we'd see hurricane impacts. So I would still recommend preparing for hurricane impacts through Lee and Charlotte. Even if it stands right now it's just a watch, there's a good chance that will be upgraded, and it still can be. Storm surge watch for Charlotte and Lee, also a storm surge warning, which means storm surge is expected in Collier. Flooding a big risk here. We could see the storm surge 5 to 10 miles. Your chance for tropical storm force winds, it is a sure bet, 100% chance really for southwest Florida, and the chance for hurricane force winds that increases with every jog to the west that this official track takes. With the 70-mile wind field outside of the center, that does put a lot of southwest Florida at risk for hurricane force winds with this new track right up the center of the state. So here is the wind field. We'll start seeing the tropical storm force wind Saturday night all across the area. Tropical storm force wind overnight into Sunday, but the hurricane force winds arrive Sunday morning. And as it stands right now, this track that is right now verified verifies, we're looking at the risk for hurricane impacts all across Southwest Florida. That is what I want you to prepare for, so that you are prepared no matter what. It's better to be over-prepared and completely okay than underprepared. So I'm not trying to give anyone extra work today or unnecessarily stress anyone out, but I'm saying that the way things are trending, the likelihood of hurricane impacts to all of Southwest Florida is increasing, and I want you to be prepared for that. Here are your threats. Tornado threat is primarily in the north and east quadrant of any hurricane. Right now, as the current track stands, we're on the west side, so that's not as much of a threat. Wind is very best case scenario. If the track shifts a lot further east, we're still looking at solid tropical storm force winds. If the track verifies right now, most of our hurricane force winds, so that's going to be a big threat. Storm surge, the highest threat is going to be coastal Collier. That could change with any shift in the track. We could see storm surge threat through our northern communities as well. Flooding, definitely a risk. Flooding is possible, especially considering the ground is already saturated. Rain totals could be anywhere from 5 to 10, maybe up to a foot over the course from now to Monday. But the wind threat right now seems to be the most severe risk. So the bottom line, this is the gist of it, right? Today's the final day to prepare, and I want you to prepare for hurricane conditions. Again, the tracks still could shift either west or east, but I want you to be prepared no matter what. I want to give you the best chance of keeping your family and your home safe. So please finalize those preparations today and prepare for hurricane conditions in Southwest Florida. Timeline for the worst and poorest conditions going to be Sunday morning to Monday morning, but we'll start seeing impacts as early as Saturday evening. Now today, our conditions will cooperate for those that are finalizing preparations out there. We're seeing a few scattered showers sneak into Hendry County this morning, but moving pretty quickly. Your planning forecast, mix of sun and clouds through this afternoon with scattered storms developing as we head into the second half of the day. But still plenty of time this morning and afternoon to finalize those outdoor preps. If you are done, please help your neighbors, help anyone you can at this point as we head into the weekend. Again, timeline Saturday to Monday. As Irma continues to track north, our conditions will improve middle of next week.
All right, if you're headed upstate or out of state because of Irma, if you know somebody that is, a few things you need to know about. That's a picture right now from Florida511.com of a big traffic backup in Marion County. We're seeing a couple of these throughout the state. In fact, I'm looking at something right now real close to the Florida-Georgia line. All lanes northbound are blocked because of an accident, and you know that is just going to multiply downstate quickly. So if you know somebody that's headed up there, make sure they know about that accident at the state line. Also, in our area, this is the only thing we're looking at. 75 a little slow through Charlotte County right now because of a disabled vehicle. That's also going north. 7:22 your time. You're watching Fox 4 Morning News.
All over Southwest Florida for plywood, and it's still really hard to find, but we're getting word now from HD Supply off Hanson Street in Fort Myers that they do have a very limited supply, and it is first come, first serve. As mandatory evacuations go into effect in the Berry Islands in Lee County, people are stocking up for last-minute supplies.
Yeah, key on the last minute there. Four in Your Corner spoke to people fueling up to head out of town and grabbing what's left at local grocery stores. Others we spoke to say they have no plans to leave the island despite a mandatory evacuation.
We shuttered up. We got hurricane resistant windows, and we live high, so we're going to stay here and ride it out.
If you do plan to evacuate and are looking for a shelter, go to our website, fox4now.com, for a list of all the shelters across Southwest Florida.
Well, the evacuees are beginning to pile into South Fort Myers High School. There is a line of cars, but the gates have yet to open. Coming up, I'll tell you why.
And here's a look at Hurricane Irma, strong Category 4, 155-mile-per-hour winds moving through the Bahamas, getting closer to the Florida Peninsula. Of course, I'll have that updated track for you and tell you exactly what to expect here in Southwest Florida coming up after the break.
We are tracking Irma for you, and this is a live look from Treasure Cay Resort in the Bahamas. You can see the wind blowing there, the water moving a little bit. Doesn't look too bad there right now, but we know that in that area things are really bad because of this Category 4 hurricane.
And here we are with Danny right now in the Weather Center, and there was a change in the last couple hours, and overnight But I mean, this thing is still monstrous.
Right. It technically weakened to a Category 4, as you just mentioned, but there's nothing weak about Irma. It's unfair to even put those words in the same sentence. We're looking at an incredibly strong Category 4 with the winds of 155. Remember, Category 5, 157 mile per hour winds. So it really is towing the line of still being a Category 5. So don't let that fool you that the last update we have dropping down to a Category 4, moving through really warm water as it tracks through the Bahamas as well. So we're not completely ruling out the potential for re-strengthening, although the National Hurricane Center does keep it a Category 4 as it approaches the Florida Peninsula. That all-important northerly shift that's expected to take place on Saturday is everything. The models have not been trending in Southwest Florida's favor over the past, I would say, 16 hours or so. Yesterday at this time, you can see the path looking much different, right? It's been trending west, and at this point, taking the track right up the center of the state. But you can see that cone of uncertainty still includes the entire peninsula, and we could see more shifts to the west. We could see shifts further to the east. But what I want you to prepare for is a hurricane-like conditions as we head into this weekend in Southwest Florida. Again, tracking further to the east, and conditions wouldn't be as bad in Southwest Florida, but if this track verifies, a lot of us do need to be prepared for those hurricane-like conditions, especially for our inland areas. It looks like the National Hurricane Center has a Category 4 storm making landfall in South Florida as we head toward this weekend. Timeline still going to be Saturday night into Monday. Spaghetti plots, remember yesterday, they all favored the east side, now shifting right up the center of the peninsula. This does look like forecast confidence is becoming a little more solid in terms of that track right up the spine of the state, which means here in Southwest Florida, we need to be prepared. Hurricane warnings have been issued for our inland counties, Collier, Glades, and Hendry. That means hurricane conditions are expected. They are in the forecast. You need to prepare for them. A hurricane warning means it's happening. You need to prepare for it. This will be, if the current track verifies, this will be where the worst conditions are. If that center of the core of Irma tracks straight up the peninsula, straight up the middle of the state, the hurricane wind field is 70 miles outside of the center, so definitely hurricane conditions for our inland counties. Our hurricane watch for Lee and Charlotte as it stands right now, which means hurricane conditions are possible. If this track jogs any tiny bit to the west, we will see the likelihood of hurricane conditions increase. And in fact, even as it stands right now, that wind field, the hurricane force wind field, would be in portions of these counties. So I would suggest, although it's a watch right now rather than a warning, absolutely preparing for hurricane-like conditions as we head into the weekend. Storm surge watch for coastal Charlotte and Lee. Storm surge warning for Collier County. This does mean we're expecting storm surge anywhere from 5 to 10 feet possible. Flooding is a major concern for Collier as we head toward the weekend. So my main message today is I'm not asking you to do unnecessary work. I'm not trying to make you scared. I'm not trying to instill panic, but we need to prepare for hurricane-like conditions because the likelihood is increasing, and I want you to give yourself the best possible chance of keeping your family safe and your home safe. So take today, with conditions staying dry for the first half, scattered storms second half, to wrap up those preparations. We need to finish them today because we will start seeing impacts from Irma as early as tomorrow. How's traffic looking so far?
Well, Danny, safety plans include for many people trip up north or even out of state. Right now, looking at northbound side of 75 at Florida, the state line, it's actually pretty heavy now because to add to that is a crash hearing that all lanes are blocked. So something to keep in mind as you make your way north of Southwest Florida. Things really do stack up, especially part of the central part of the state on up towards the Georgia state line. Again, we are accident free through Lee County, and so far so good along 75 through Collier and Charlotte counties. In Lee County, mandatory evacuation orders go into effect in just under, actually they are now in effect. They started at 7, so it happened about half an hour ago. The orders are if you live on Bonita Beach, Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, Captiva, or Pine Island. This mandatory evacuation order also in effect for all mobile homes across Lee County, regardless of where they're located. Starting at 9, though, the Lee County shelters will open. In Lehigh Acres, you can head to East Lee County High School. That's accepting pets, Varsity Lakes, and Harns Marsh Middle. In Fort Myers, you can seek shelter at Oak Hammock Middle and South Fort Myers High, which is accepting pets. Shelters will also be open at Island Coast High in Cape Coral and the Estero Rec Center. And this morning, for In Your Corners, Malcolm Johnson's joining us from one of those shelters at South Fort Myers High School.
Yeah, that's where people are lining up to get access to that shelter, which opens, I guess, in about 90 minutes. Malcolm, what are you seeing there?
Chris, we're seeing exactly what you just mentioned. People lining up here. As he said, the doors don't open for a little while now, not until 9 a.m. So all of these cars that you're seeing here right now, what they are waiting to do is be able to park inside of the parking lot at the high school. They're not opening the gates for all of these cars that you see here that are lined up until the Red Cross gets here. The school is going to house the evacuees who have decided to make this decision to be here, but it's going to be the Red Cross that is really running things. They're going to be running the operation of how things will go. So the doors don't open until 9, but the gate is really what we need to open up here, because as you see, this is just about looking like a parking lot, and eventually these cars that are all lined up won't have anywhere to go. So it'll be interesting to see how the sheriff's office decides to administer and operate that situation. Right now I'm joined by Jasmine. Jasmine, we appreciate you for taking some time with us. You just moved here about 6 months ago.
Yes.
Yeah? What do you think about all this?
I want to go home.
Home back to Louisville, where you moved from, or home to
home back to Louisville, Kentucky, where I moved from. You know, we don't have this. We've had one earthquake since I've been alive, and that was it. And it was so small, I slept straight through that. So like I'm not used to this. No.
This, yeah. But do you feel secure with this being where you'll be, and especially having a little one here?
I do. I know schools are always built to sustain things like this, so I do feel safe being here rather than being at home.
Right. Well, Jasmine, we appreciate you taking the time, and we hope that your stay here is as good as possible. This is some of Jasmine's family, Chris and Jane, so they'll be here for however many days necessary in this situation calls for, with Hurricane Irma approaching. We're live this morning. Reporting in Fort Myers, I'm Malcolm Johnson, Fox 4 in your corner.
Malcolm, thank you. Malcolm's in Lee County. How about Collier County? Well, mandatory evacuations are in order for some communities there, starting at 1 this afternoon. The mandatory evacuation orders go into effect for Goodland, Everglades City, and Chokoloskee. There's also a voluntary evacuation advisory for Marco Island until further notice. But people in mobile homes across the county, especially those east of Collier Boulevard, are also strongly advised to leave the area.
And now I want to go over to 4 in Your Corner's Jillian Idle. She's in Collier County at Palmetto Ridge High School, one of those shelters. Jillian?
Well, good morning, Jane, Chris. So this shelter is going to be open here in a little bit. It opens at 8 this morning, but I want to note this shelter is specifically for those with special needs. There are several requirements in order to be able to come here to seek shelter, and we're going to have those listed for you on the screen, but also on our website, fox4now.com. It's important to note you need to bring a caregiver in order to stay here. Now, this is one of 8 shelters that's going to be open starting today in Collier County for those needing a place to stay during the storm. 3 of those are going to be pet friendly. Again, this is the only special needs one. And I do want to note that whatever shelter you decide to go to, if you're going to evacuate and head to a shelter here in Collier County, it's important you bring items like medications, also your cell phone charger, anything that's going to keep you comfortable throughout the weekend, and stuff that you don't want to leave behind in your home. Anything that's extremely important to you, also important papers and documents. And of course, we're going to have all this listed for you on our website, but also our social media app. It's free in the App Store. That's Fox 4 Now. You can download it and also get the complete list there. And we'll have more for you coming up here in just a little bit. But for now, reporting live in Collier County, Jillian Idle, Fox 4 in your corner.
All right, Jillian, thank you. If you're in Collier County and you have pets, you can head to one of these shelters on your screen, Immokalee Middle School and Cypress Palm Middle School. Now, there are some shelters in Collier County that will not allow pets. They are Immokalee High, Gulf Coast High, Oak Ridge Middle, and Lely High.
Voluntary evacuations are being recommended for people on the Berry Islands in Charlotte County, but this is not a mandatory evacuation. This includes Don Pedro Island, Knight Island, Little Gasparilla and Gasparilla Islands, and then Minnesota Key. This recommendation also includes people living in mobile homes across Charlotte County.
Let's move to Hendry County now. If you live there, there is a shelter at LaBelle Middle School. Over in Glades County, Maples Grove Baptist Church, West Glades Elementary, and Moorhaven High School will all act as shelters. And in DeSoto County, the shelter will be at DeSoto Middle School. We also want to make sure you know there's a special needs shelter that will open at South Florida State College in Arcadia. Well, Governor Rick Scott announced mandatory evacuations for areas south of Lake Okeechobee from Lakeport to Canal Point.
The order will be effective today for South Bay, Lake Harbor, Pahokee, Moorhaven, Clewiston, Belglade, and Canal Point. Now, you may have noticed gas is in short supply here in Southwest Florida. Fuel is especially low on Marco Island, which is under a voluntary evacuation order. We spoke to the owner of a Chevron gas station in Marco Island, who said they ran out of gas and were down for several hours until a fuel delivery put them back in business. Marco Island police say they are encouraging residents to fuel up early to avoid future traffic. Marco police also asking people to conserve their fuel and maybe not get gas for a lawnmower or boat they don't intend to use.
We are in a time where people need to help each other, and a Tallahassee Senior Living Center is opening its doors to a group of seniors from Naples who've evacuated because of Irma. 125 people from VI at Bentley Village got to the Tapestry Senior Living of Tallahassee around 3 in the morning yesterday. Many of those senior citizens say they've never been through a hurricane, and with an influx of new people, Tapestry says they need volunteers.
Just to help somebody, escort somebody and navigate through the building, you know, those little things is where, you know, we're struggling with and trying to do the best we can. So someone who would want to come in just to help escort to and from their bedroom, to activities, do activities, that's where I'm kind of focusing and trying to put some resources at.
And we heard Governor Scott say yesterday that volunteers are needed all over the state. Tapestry says the evacuees are welcome to stay for as long as they need to stay. Many of them have already notified their families that they've been moved to Tallahassee.
And at 7:41, we actually just got that 8 a.m. advisory down from the National Hurricane Center. I'll have all the latest and everything you need to know coming up right after the break.
Oh yes, sure, definitely. I have never experienced this in my life, in my entire life. So I just thought it might be, safe for me to get out because I have never been in this before and I just want to get out.
Flights in Florida are being canceled in preparation for Irma. By this afternoon, American Airlines will begin shutting down operations in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Fort Myers, Sarasota, and West Palm Beach. All will be canceled through the weekend. Southwest Airlines also canceling all flights to and from Fort Lauderdale, Fort Myers, and West Palm Beach starting tonight until Saturday.
All right, so they have heeded the warnings and trying to get out of Florida. And you have a new advisor or some kind of change here in the last few minutes, Danny?
Yeah, the 8 a.m. update's actually already been released. So the latest is with Category 4 Hurricane Irma, 150-mile-per-hour winds. So that did drop 5 more miles per hour as compared to the 5 a.m. update. But don't let that give you false hope. We are not looking at a weak hurricane by any stretch of the imagination. Still potentially catastrophic as it tracks through the Bahamas. Right now, Irma is located about 450 miles southeast of Miami. You can see the massive hurricane, still a Category 4, as I mentioned, and it's tracking into some extremely warm water. We're not ruling out the potential for re-strengthening, although the official track from the National Hurricane Center does keep